Hello dear students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. DC Saxena, Professor and Head of the Department of Food Engineering and Technology at Sant Longowal Institute of Engineering and Technology, Longowal. I am presenting you the paper Technology of Meat, Poultry, Fish and Seafood Products. Herein, the module Inspection and Pre-Slaughter Care of Poultry will be explained to you by my co-author, Ms. Romi Jan.
Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Romi Jan from Sant Longowal Institute of Engineering and Technology. Today I am going to talk about Module 16 Inspection and Pre-Slaughter Care of Poultry of Paper number 8 Technology of Meat, Poultry, Fish and Seafood Products. In this module, we will learn about poultry and its inspection and pre-slaughter care. Poultry production and consumption exhibit a global trend towards overall increase despite the temporary effects of the current recession. It's reasonable to predict that in the next decade, the demand for meat, poultry, and egg production will expand further. All poultry species and major breeds employed in the main intensive production systems are transported at least twice during their lifetimes over distances that may range from a few kilometers to journeys with durations of many hours. Most journeys are by road, for example, from hatchery to production site or from farm to processing plant, but some birds may also be transported by air or sea. The contents of this module that we will go through includes the following: stresses of transportation, problems of transportation, hygiene of poultry, pre-slaughter care of poultry. Transportation is an extremely stressful process for the commercial poultry. Birds experience new stimuli, motion, vibration, and impacts, daylight, noise, overcrowding, temperature extremes of greater intensity and more varied than they have previously encountered. The potentially adverse consequences of transportation includes physical, physiological, and behavioral changes. Among those are death, thermal stress, trauma, fatigue, hunger, and thirst. Physiologically indicative of stress plus fear and aversion. About 0.3% of birds die between farm and the factory, and there are reports of 24% of laying hens acquiring broken bones when they are removed from their cages. Scientific evidence shows increasing stress and mortality in all classes of poultry as transportation time, holding time, and feed and water deprivation time increase. Broilers transported for 2, 4 or 6 hours after 1 to 10 hour feed withdrawal transport significantly reduced liver weight but did not affect live or carcass weights. Withdrawal of food alone or both feed and water for 24 hours resulted in a 10% decrease in live weight, of which 41% was loss in carcass weight of broiler chickens. There are two systems of catching poultry: hand manual catching and automatic harvesting mechanical catching. 3 different catching machines for broilers are available on the market, which includes Apollo, Semi-Calibra, Chicken Catch, Claas Olsen and Son, and Easy Load Harvesting System and Gilia Autoflow. Automated harvesting systems for broilers are more widely distributed in countries where labor is more expensive. Automated catching systems for turkeys are mainly supplied by Semi Calabria. They are used to some extent in France, Italy, and southern Germany. Advantages of automated harvesting systems compared to manual catching is less damage, broken wings, bruises, and less dead animals on transport. The poultry arrives at the slaughter plant where the crates or the containers are offloaded. The birds wait normally in an air-conditioned room until slaughter. The duration of their stay at the plant is between 1 and 3 hours. A resting time of 2 hours is recommended. The advantage of a constant resting time, that is, of 2 hours, is a better meat quality. The internal thermal microenvironment in the poultry transport containers is the product of the inlet air temperature and humidity, airflow rate, and the heat and moisture production of the birds. The passive ventilation regimes of most commercial broiler transport vehicles result in low rates and heterogeneous distribution of airflow within the bioload. Studies have characterized the pressure profiles over the surface of and within commercial broiler vehicles. It is these pressures that drive passive ventilation within the vehicle. Commercial processing of broiler chickens at 2 packing plants concluded that holding birds in lorage as opposed to killing them upon arrival at the plant for 1, 2, or 3 hours increased their body temperature and depleted their liver glycogen but did not dehydrate them or physically stress them. The welfare of poultry during pre-slaughter time is receiving more and more attention to improve conditions to safeguard animal welfare. The recent Council regulation have established that suitable food and water shall be available in adequate quantities in the case of a journey lasting more than 12 hours. The European Union proposal of Council Directive lays down minimum rules for the protection of chickens kept for meat production and includes the mortality during transport 0.5% as a parameter to allow stocking density during rearing periods exceeding 30 kg of live weight per square meter. The birds may be exposed to a variety of potential stressors during transit, including the thermal demands of transport, microenvironments, acceleration, vibration, motion, impacts, fasting, withdrawal of water, social disruption, and noise. These factors cause adverse effects on the birds that may range from mild discomfort to death. All these birds before slaughter are caught, loaded into cages or coops, transported to an abattoir that may be located either close or far from the farm and lard in a holding area. Many problems may occur at these stages that potentially increase the rate of mortality. Broilers and turkeys that are dead on arrival at the plant represent a complete loss of economic value and range up to 0.5. the mortality for spent hens is generally higher and more variable. The owner, the person authorized to dispose of the poultry, or their representative must facilitate the pre-slaughter inspection operation and, in particular, assist the official veterinarian in any handling deemed necessary. At the slaughterhouse, the official veterinarian shall ensure that the poultry is identified and, in particular, check where the poultry has suffered injury during transport. In the event of doubt concerning the identity of a consignment of poultry and where the poultry must undergo pre-slaughter health inspection at the slaughterhouse. Slaughter for the purpose of human consumption must be forbidden if then clinical symptoms of the following diseases have been established: omythosis, salmonellosis. The official veterinarian may, at the request of the owner of the poultry or of his representative, authorize the slaughter at the end of the normal slaughter process, provided precautions are taken to keep to a minimum the risk of spreading bacteria and to clean and disinfect the facilities after the slaughter, with the poultry meat resulting from the slaughter being handled as if it were meat declared unfit for human consumption. The imposition of thermal loads upon the birds in transit will result in moderate to severe thermal stress and consequent reduced welfare, increased mortality due to either heat or cold stress, and induced pathology including muscle damage and associated changes in product quality. Mortality has long been a concern in relation to poultry transportation and continues to be an episodic issue in all countries where meat birds are produced. Elevated temperature during hot weather pose a greater pre-slaughter risk of mortality to broilers during loading and loadage at the slaughterhouse than on the vehicle if it's constantly moving. Mortality was highest in those parts of the vehicle where temperatures and humidities were greatest, or where the ingress of cold air and water resulted in cold stress. They reported that 89.4% of dead birds exhibited microscopic pathological lesions. Infectious disease states were the main causes of lesions, 64.9%, followed by heart and circulation disorders, 42.4%, and trauma, 25%. It should be noted, however, that birds affected by any of these pathologies will be rendered susceptible to thermal stress and thus may succumb at when exposed to thermal conditions that would so adversely affect healthy birds. Shorter journey time, less than 3.5 hours, exhibited a lower mortality rate of 0.24% of birds in respect with longer time greater than 5 hours, 0.45%. Thermal challenges represent a major risk to the welfare of birds in transit and to production efficiency. Then, understanding the thermal microenvironment on commercial transport vehicles is essential to the development of appropriate strategies to control that environment and to reduce the risk of thermal stress in transit. It is reported that 89.4% of dead birds exhibited microscopic pathological lesions. Infectious disease states were the main cause of lesions, 64.9%, followed by heart and circulation disorders 42.4% and trauma 25%. It should be noted, however, that birds affected by any of these pathologies will be rendered susceptible to thermal stress and thus may succumb at when exposed to thermal conditions that would so adversely affect healthy birds. Another important consequence of transportation of broilers, which is exacerbated by elevated thermal loads, is weight loss through increased demand for evaporative heat loss. This reduces product delivery weight, and significant dehydration will compromise bird welfare and affect product quality. Only live poultry may be brought into slaughter premises. As soon as they are brought into those premises, the birds must be slaughtered after stunning, except in the case of slaughter according to religious rite. Bleeding must be completed and carried out in such a way that the blood can't cause contamination outside the place of slaughter. Slaughtered poultry must be plucked immediately and completely. Evisceration must be carried out immediately in the case of total evisceration or within the period laid in the case of partial or deferred evisceration. Slaughtered poultry must be opened in such a way that the cavities and all the relevant viscera can be inspected. For this purpose, the viscera to be inspected may either be detached or left attached to the carcass by their natural connections. If detached, they must be identifiable as belonging to a given carcass. After inspection, the viscera which have been removed must be separated immediately from the carcass and the parts unfit for human consumption removed at once. Viscera or parts of viscera remaining in the carcass must, with the exception of kidneys, be removed entirely if possible under satisfactory hygienic conditions. It's forbidden to clean poultry meat by wiping with a cloth or to fill the carcass with anything other than edible offal or neck offal from poultry slaughtered in the slaughterhouse. Detained poultry meat on the one hand and the poultry meat declared unfit for human consumption, not allowed for human consumption, and feathers and waste must be removed as soon as possible to the rooms, facilities or containers, and must be so handled that contamination is kept to a minimum. Whereas it's not practical to expect a veterinarian to examine each bird on the farm before it leaves for the poultry processing plant. It's the producer's responsibility to ensure that the birds are healthy as far as the producer can tell. Sick birds should not be sent for slaughter. They should be disposed of at the farm under veterinary supervision if possible. The circumstances of the sickness should always be reported to the veterinarian. The legislation lacks a clear catalogue of reasons for contamination. It also does not specify under which circumstances the whole carcass must be rejected, or if only the affected organ system needs to be condemned. An example of this is the different rejection rates with air sac infections, liver necrosis, and ascites between different member states and even between different slaughterhouses of the same member state. Transportation of live birds to the slaughterhouse involves the possibility of contamination, especially if cleaning and disinfection is insufficient and the same kits are used for several different flocks. There are Several precautions that should be taken regarding vehicle and transport hygiene. Cleaning and disinfection of cages should be carried out after use, and if cages are not used for some time, then the process should be repeated as contamination may occur in storage. The vehicles which carry the modules or cages should also be cleaned and disinfected after use. At harvesting, when crowding is most severe, dim lights or near darkness are used on many farms to reduce stress and fighting. Harvesting and transportation are usually done at night or early morning hours when roads are free of traffic jams and animals can be transported to the slaughterhouse without delay. Moreover, the weather at this time of the day, especially the temperature, is usually more suitable. The zoonosis regulation describes the general objectives and time frame in addition to specific regulations addressing breeders, layers, broilers, and turkeys. The meat inspection rules should be laid down in species-specific legislation. Good personal cleanliness and habits are of the utmost importance in maintaining high standards of hygiene in a poultry processing operation. Staff are involved at all stages of processing and the provision of cleaning facilities and materials together with a policy of staff training in hygienic practices will form the basis for achieving high standards of hygiene. There should be facilities to wash hands and tools, also sterilizing baths for the tools. So students, let's now summarize what we have learned in this module. Poultry are exposed to a number of concurrent stressors during the transportation. It's proposed that thermal talents, both elevated thermal loads and cold stress, constitute the main threat to the birds' welfare and survival. Whilst genetic selection in broiler chickens has resulted in major improvements in the growth rates and production efficiency, these advances may also be associated with a reduced resistance to thermal stress, altered heat exchange capacity, and muscle and cardiovascular pathologies. Welfare during transport may be improved by a more holistic consideration of the bird's physiology, rearing conditions, pre-transport handling, and the prevailing conditions and stressors that may be imposed during the journey.
So you have got some knowledge about the inspection and pre-slaughter care of poultry, which has been explained by Ms. Romijan. In the next module, we will be discussing about the stunning and slaughtering of poultry. Thank you.